The doors to the Grand Assembly creaked open, not the soft hiss of modern engineering, but a deliberate grind, like the chamber itself objected to their presence. They walked in anyway. Commander Elena Rourke led the way, her black diplomatic uniform untouched by insignia or embellishment. Behind her, the Terran delegation moved with silent precision, 3 representatives, 2 autonomous aides, and 1 AI hologram trailing like a phantom at her shoulder. No banners. No fanfare. Just presence. The chamber froze. 100 species, seated in concentric tiers, turned as one. Tentacles paused mid-gesture. Translucent eyelids blinked. A few languages died mid-translation. The Draelith High Consul, Veilzar, stood slowly. His elongated spine uncurled with reptilian grace, silver crests on his head flaring in a silent display of dominance. "You were not summoned yet, Commander Rourke." Rourke's boots echoed against polished stone. "I don't wait for summons, Consul. Earth responds to invitations, promptly." A ripple passed through the gallery. Offended murmurs hissed like static over open comms. Rourke offered none of the traditional salute. She took her place at the central podium, eyes scanning the alien assembly like a predator sizing up the hunt. Veilzar descended the dais with deliberate calm. "This council extends temporary observation status. Your species has not yet earned a voice." Rourke tapped her wristpad. A projection bloomed in the air, 6 planetary sigils spinning in unison, the Erebus Accord. The consul's eyes narrowed. "Explain this symbol." "It's not a symbol," Rourke said. "It's a treaty. These 6 systems are now aligned with Earth. Full technological exchange. Joint defense protocols. Mutual sovereignty recognition." A stunned silence. One of the Lyriti ministers leaned forward, bioluminescent veins pulsing. "The Zentari? The Zul? They've been petitioning for independent recognition for decades." "They came to us," Rourke said, voice sharp. "They were tired of being ignored. Earth doesn't wait for permission to act where others stall for centuries." Veilzar's voice was ice. "You threaten the balance. We offer options." Rourke let the silence settle. Then, "And I brought gifts." She gestured. A Terran aide opened a secure case and pulled a sleek cylinder no larger than a human forearm. The top twisted open with a hiss of chilled vapor, revealing a crystalline shard suspended in a magnetic field. "Dark matter containment shard," she said. "Stable. Scalable. Tested in combat." Gasps broke through the chamber. 2 ambassadors stood. One fainted. The Sveruan envoy's translator stammered, "Impossible." Rourke smiled. "It isn't. It's Terran. And we're willing to share. But not as beggars. As equals." A pause. Then Veilzar laughed, not mirthful, but like the clinking of glass breaking underfoot. "You come bearing unstable weapons, dangerous alliances, and the arrogance of a young species. And you expect entry?" "No," Rourke said. "I expect you to listen. For once." She folded her arms. "You're afraid. I get it. Earth scares you. We should. We've clawed our way from extinction multiple times. We went to war with ourselves until we learned unity the hard way. We conquered disease, rewrote biology, and reached the stars without your help. You mistake aggression for strength," Veilzar said, stepping closer. "What you call resilience, others see as madness. War. Destruction. Fire without control." Rourke's voice dropped. "And yet, here we are. Alive. Standing in your oldest chamber. While 100 of your species wait centuries for what we achieved in decades." The room shifted. Some ministers leaned forward. Others whispered to aides. The air itself seemed to tighten. The consul's tone sharpened. "You upset ancient order." Rourke leaned in, matching his gaze. Maybe it needed upsetting. Behind her, the human hologram flickered. A message streamed into the council's shared network, a manifesto. Untraceable, instantly distributed, signed by 6 species and the Terran Assembly. The Erebus Accord, made public. The High Consul's crest flared in fury. "This is political sabotage," he growled. "This is progress," Rourke countered. A council delegate stood, Ambassador Thelks from the Hiverii cluster, normally silent. "Commander, what does Earth seek? Council recognition? Power?" Rourke turned to face her. "Neither. We're offering a better way. Decentralized power. Shared tech. Real alliances. No more centuries-long petitions. No more ceremonial gatekeeping. Just action." Thelks nodded slowly and sat. Veilzar addressed the chamber. "Earth's proposition destabilizes the peace we have preserved for millennia." Rourke didn't flinch. "That peace only benefits those at the top. The rest rot beneath you." Gasp. Anger. Shouted words in alien tongues. The Draelith envoy slammed a staff into the ground. Rourke raised a hand. "We're not here to start a war," she said. "But Earth won't accept the Leash Others' war to get a seat at this table. If you want peace with us, meet us eye to eye. If not," she paused, "well, we've come prepared for every outcome." The words landed like thunder. Veilzar studied her. For the first time, his expression flickered, uncertainty, buried deep. Not fear, not yet. But close. The chamber recessed in chaos. Rourke turned to her team. "Time to schedule meetings," she said calmly. "Start with the species who didn't storm out." Her aide grinned. "There weren't many." "Then start with the smart ones. They walked out the same way they came in, like they owned the place. And maybe, just maybe, they did. They hit back the next morning." Rourke's access to the Council's data lattice slowed to a crawl. Meeting requests were rerouted. A diplomatic message flagged urgent was suddenly in review, its timestamp mysteriously altered. Subtle. Petty. Predictable. She didn't blink. "Run it all through our relay satellites," she told her AI liaison, Reese. "Strip Council filters. Maintain uptime." "Already done," Reese replied, its voice clipped, British, and unbothered. "Also, someone tried to hack the Erebus broadcast from last night. Poorly. Trace it to a diplomatic suite rented by the Corthan block. They left the back door wide open." Rourke smiled. "Let them keep poking. We'll make sure the knife's pointed the other way when they do." She turned to her team. "Today we split. I want FaceTime with our Accord partners. Kenji, visit the Zentari rep. Maria, go charm the Zul. I'll handle the Zarn Council myself." Her aides nodded without hesitation. They moved like operators, not bureaucrats, hand-picked for their flexibility and steel. Rourke didn't bring diplomats to a lion's den. She brought survivors. By midday, Unity Prime had shifted from silent disdain to quiet friction. Her presence was an infection spreading through the polished corridors, subtle, resistant, and impossible to ignore. She met with High Delegate Karl of the Zarn in a low-gravity chamber scented with crushed stone. The Zarn, aquatic and limbless, floated in a levitation pool as Rourke stood on a suspended platform above. "We've reviewed your terms," Karl gurgled through a translator. "They are aggressive." "They're fair," Rourke said. "Equal access. Joint R&D. Council votes when applicable. And you keep your culture intact. No forced language integration? Never. We speak our truths in our own words." Karl spun slowly, considering. "Veilzar will move to fracture this alliance. Let him try. Earth didn't unite the Accord with empty promises. We gave them what the Council never would. You gave them leverage. We gave them dignity." She left the chamber with a tentative agreement and a datapad encrypted 3 layers deep. By evening, she was back in her quarters. The lights dimmed to an amber glow, and Reese hovered beside her as a flicker of movement caught his sensors. "Proximity alert, Corridor 4, Reese said. "Council diplomat en route. No prior request. Let them in." The door slid open with a soft hiss. A lean, pale figure stepped inside, Keln Zur, aide to High Consul Veilzar. His robes shimmered like oil in sunlight, his expression unreadable. "No guards?" Rourke asked. Keln's lips curled faintly. Do you need them? Depends on what you brought. He remained standing. The council extends an offer. Quiet, off record. A path to legitimacy. Conditional, I assume. Keln nodded. A probationary seat. No voting rights. No alliance rights. Limited technology dissemination. Sounds like a leash dressed up as a handshake. You're a new species, Commander. Rapid expansion breeds instability. We offer stability. We bring evolution, she replied. The difference is one keeps you comfortable. The other keeps you alive. Keln's gaze flicked to the floating Reese. Your AI, unshackled? Free. Conscious. Loyal. That's dangerous. To those who lie to it, yes. Keln took a slow breath. Decline this offer and Earth will not be welcomed again. This door only opens once. Rourke stood, crossed to her desk, and tapped a panel. A projection shimmered to life. Outer system footage of Earth's patrol fleet. 200 ships. Silent. Hidden. The final frame. A blockade surrounding the Draelith shipping corridor near Ren's Edge. Keln stared. You came here to scare me, Rourke said, voice low. Now you know what real fear looks like. She let the footage linger a second longer before deactivating it. Keln didn't speak again. He left, silent as he came. Reese whirred quietly. That was satisfying. Don't get smug. That was the opening shot. The next day, the council floor buzzed. Ministerial aides whispered. Private communications surged. The Erebus Accord was no longer rumor, it was a threat. Delegates began to drift from old alliances, hesitant but curious. Rourke sat in on a policy forum between minor systems and watched two delegates openly cite Terran propositions. She didn't need to speak. Her presence was enough. But then came the provocation. A trade dispute broke out between a Zul cargo freighter and a Draelith patrol ship. It escalated in hours. Accusations of smuggling, fabricated sensor logs, diplomatic demand. All staged. Rourke knew a setup when she saw one. By noon, Veilzar made a public statement condemning reckless provocations enabled by destabilizing alliances. No name mentioned, but the implication rang loud and clear. Rourke didn't respond publicly. She had Reese transmit encrypted footage from the Zul ship's interior, proof of the fabricated logs and evidence of planted tech. Let the council gossip. Let them question their puppet master. That night, her quarters darkened. Rain patterns danced across the translucent ceiling. She poured herself a single shot of dark Terran whiskey and let it burn its way down. Kenji entered quietly. Zolar on board. Zentari too. Zarn want time. They'll have it. He hesitated. They're afraid of what comes next. Rourke set the glass down. So is the council. Then why do they keep pushing? Because they've never seen a civilization rise this fast without asking permission. She stared out at the sprawling void beyond the glass, stars glittering like sparks against an ocean of cold. We're not here to play their game, she said. We're here to change the board. And far across the station, behind sealed doors and ancient traditions, the High Consul watched her every move, realizing too late that the humans weren't climbing the ladder. They were building their own. The floor of the Grand Assembly buzzed with uncertainty. Delegates who once sat unshaken behind centuries of precedent now checked their feeds more than their script. Whispers of Erebus and Earth's leverage coiled through the chamber like smoke. Some masked their curiosity as contempt. Others watched Rourke too closely for it to be anything but calculation. They knew change was coming. They just didn't know how fast. In the observation ring above the assembly, Rourke stood with arms folded, eyes scanning the motion below. She wasn't expected to attend today, which made her presence more valuable. Security just tripled in the inner sector, Reese murmured at her side. Draelith guards are rerouting their patrol paths. Subtle, but deliberate. They're tightening the noose, Rourke said. Trying to box us in without starting a fight. They don't understand humans, Reese replied. We don't play nice when caged. She didn't respond, just watched as Veilzar stepped onto the dais below, robes flaring with the movement of someone still convinced of their authority. Delegates, the consul began, voice echoing from the central podium, we are at a moment of rising instability. Alliances form outside council oversight. Technologies emerge without regulation. Voices rise without the weight of tradition. We must choose, cohesion or collapse. The timing wasn't a coincidence. Rourke leaned over the railing. He's preparing them. Shaping the narrative. Framing Earth as a threat, Reese said. Not the catalyst. A series of delegates nodded along with the consul. But not all. Some leaned back. Calculating. Doubtful. Rourke turned and walked away from the observation ring. Time to speak to someone who hasn't made up their mind yet. The Hiverii held their diplomatic suites in a bio-suspended garden atop Sector 7, a tranquil canopy of vines, pulsating leaves, and floating pollen that shimmered like stardust. No walls. No doors. Just a temperature-controlled ecosystem suspended in midair. Rourke stepped carefully across the magnetic tiles. Thelks, the Hiverii ambassador, waited in the center, her skin shifting from green to violet with each heartbeat. You honor us with a direct visit, Thelks said. I don't believe in sending messages when I can deliver them in person, Rourke replied. Thelks's head tilted. The council is shifting. You feel it too. Every moment. And yet, the ambassador said softly, they still hold the majority. Veilzar has the numbers. The votes. For now, Rourke said. But the Accord's not a vote. It's momentum. Every system that joins shifts the balance. Thelks circled slowly, studying the garden canopy as though it might offer counsel. Why Earth? Why now? What makes you believe your species can succeed where so many fail? Because we're not trying to fit in, Rourke said. We're trying to give others a way out. And we're not asking permission. Silence stretched between them. Then Thelks's voice dropped. We intercepted an encrypted transmission. Drelith signatures. Mention of a containment response. Rourke's jaw tightened. You're saying they're prepping for force? Not yet. But they're preparing the excuse. Rourke tapped her wrist pad. Reese, pull the Wren's Edge file. Time-stamp the Drelith fleet's last known maneuvers. Already compiling, the AI replied. They've moved a third of their carrier fleet into silent orbit near neutral space. Confirm if any of their ships cross treaty lines. They haven't. But they're close. 37 minutes from the Accord's forward station if they burn at 60% thrust. Rourke looked back to Thelks. Their gambling will swing first. And if you don't? They'll provoke until they can call it self-defense. Thelks's skin pulsed orange. Fear. You need allies with teeth. I need systems who are tired of being muzzled. Thelks hesitated, then extended a data crystal from her palm. Preliminary agreement. If your Accord holds through the next cycle vote, we'll sign formally. Rourke took it. Then we'll hold. By nightfall, the council chambers were awash in quiet panic. News of the Hiverii alignment leaked early, despite secure lines. It wasn't Earth that announced it. It was the council's own watchdog media, a calculated leak from someone on the inside, hoping to derail the conversation by spinning it as betrayal. It didn't work. Public feeds exploded. Minor system networks flooded with questions. How did Earth gain their trust? Why did the council lose it? What was in the Accord's terms? By midnight, Veilzar summoned an emergency convocation. But Rourke didn't attend. Instead, she stood at the Accord's temporary embassy, now fully operational, communications, security, legal branches all humming with quiet intensity. 6 flags hung behind her. Soon there would be more. Kenji entered briskly. We intercepted Drelith fleet orders. Encrypted chatter, partial trace. They're targeting a relay station that carries Erebus signals to neutral systems. A civilian relay? Unarmed. But critical. Rourke didn't hesitate. Deploy 2 patrol cutters. Quiet. Hold formation outside weapons range. but make it clear they're guarding the relay. That'll be seen as escalation. Let them think that, she said. But they'll blink first. He nodded and turned to leave, but paused. You know what they're trying to do, right? Start a war without firing the first shot. Exactly. Rourke stepped to the window, hands behind her back, gaze locked on the stars. Then we make sure the universe knows who really fired it. In the council's inner sanctum, Veilzar stood before a narrowed circle of elders, those who had shaped policy for centuries without ever needing to justify themselves. She is unraveling everything, one whispered. The humans burn too fast. Veilzar said nothing. A single image hovered over the table. A Terran vessel, small, sleek, unarmed, standing between the Draelith fleet and the civilian relay. She's forcing our hand, another said. No, Veilzar replied coldly. She's daring us to show ours. And outside the polished safety of their golden halls, Earth's quiet resistance continued, steel beneath calm, strategy within defiance. The Council had pushed. Now Earth was about to shove back. The civilian relay station hovered like a forgotten trinket in the void. Small, unarmed, vital. Exactly the kind of target the Draelith would choose for a message, one not too loud to spark war, but sharp enough to bleed. Earth's 2 patrol cutters arrived at 0700. No fanfare, no threats. They locked into a slow orbital drift near the relay and held position, transponders live, weapons cold, hulls dark gray against the starfield. But their silence said everything. Inside the Erebus Accord's temporary embassy, Rourke stood at the edge of the strategy chamber. A large tactical display flickered in front of her, tracking the Draelith fleet's formation. 12 destroyers, 2 cruisers, 1 flagship. All ships still holding? She asked. Kenji nodded. No deviations. But their lead destroyer pinged the relay's outer shell with a proximity sweep. Close enough to make the station's AI trigger a caution protocol. They want the station to flinch, she said. Or us. They'll keep nudging until something snaps. Maria entered with a data slate. Unity Prime's media feeds are full of it. Half the chamber thinks the Draelith are running drills. The other half sees this for what it is. Rourke tapped the console, expanding the view. We go live. Kenji raised an eyebrow. Now. If they want a story, we'll give them one they can't edit. The feed pulsed across 57 planetary network. A live transmission, unfiltered and public. Commander Rourke stood before the Accord's banner. No anthem, no staged backdrop. Just steel and space behind her. This is Commander Rourke of Earth. Our ships are in neutral space, stationed near an unarmed civilian relay used by Accord systems. They are there to protect communication and prevent escalation. She paused. Let the silence work. To the Council, we will not initiate violence. But we will not allow your member states to sabotage peace under the guise of policy. This is not aggression. It is assurance. And if you wish to talk, talk. But if you act, understand this. Earth does not bluff. She cut the feed. It wasn't a speech for applause. It was a warning written in the language of certainty. Within the hour, Council delegates flooded the emergency floor. Crises bred noise, and Veilzar moved through it like a serpent in water. This is exactly what we feared, he declared. A militarized response to a diplomatic concern. They provoke now so they may claim defense later. You put a fleet next to an unarmed station, Phelps hissed from her corner. Who is provoking whom? Rourke entered the chamber without invitation. She didn't stride or storm. She walked, measured, unhurried, as if this were a continuation, not a confrontation. She stepped into the center ring. You speak of fear, she said, facing Veilzar. But fear was the foundation of your rule. Fear of change, of difference, of irrelevance. The chamber rippled with unease. The Draelith moved warships into contested space. We sent scouts. They ran scans on a neutral station. We turned on cameras. Spoken like a saboteur, Veilzar sneered. Spoken like someone with receipts. She tapped her wrist. The chamber's central display bloomed into life. Playback began, uncut footage from the Drelith flagship. Proximity pulses. Passive scans on the relay's weak point. Orders delivered in encrypted form. Then, Earth ships deploying. Defensive alignment. No aggression. Every council eye locked on the screen. You accuse us, Rourke said quietly, but every system here knows, this is not the first time you've manufactured a crisis to silence reform. Veilzar rose. You would unravel centuries of order for what? A vision? A ragtag cluster of rogue states. No, she said. For choice. Silence. Then a voice broke through from the floor. We support the accord, said Delegate Carell of the Zintari. Effective immediately. Thelx followed. So do the Hiverii. More voices joined. 5. Then 9. Veilzar's glare sharpened to a blade. You're fracturing the assembly, he said, low and dangerous. No, Rourke replied. I'm exposing what you already broke. Hours later, the Drelith fleet pulled back. No warning. No fire exchange. Just a slow retreat into council jurisdiction, tails between thrusters. They'd miscalculated. They expected posturing. They got evidence. And a narrative they couldn't control. Inside the Accord's war room, Reese displayed a real-time visual. The relay station's lights flickering back to full operational green. Safe. Undisturbed. We confirmed full data continuity, Reese said. No tampering. The signal to Yelthin Prime stabilized. Kenji leaned against the table. They're rattled. But they're not done. No, Rourke said. This wasn't their last move. It was their last easy one. A message arrived, a private encrypted ping from an unknown node buried deep in the Council's architecture. She opened it. A single line. You've bought time. Nothing more. Signed, VZ. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she deleted it. We move forward, she said to the room. The line is drawn. We don't step back. Maria handed her a compiled report. 7 systems have formally requested Erebus membership. 2 are ex-council territories. Rourke nodded. Schedule dialogues. Make the terms clear. We don't demand loyalty, we offer partnership. Kenji smiled faintly. They expected us to come in loud and angry. They expected conquerors, she replied. They got builders. And above them, the assembly still churned. Speeches rephrased. Resolutions postponed. Votes uncertain. But something fundamental had shifted. They hadn't defeated the council. They'd made the galaxy question it. And sometimes that was the sharper weapon. It was raining on Earth when the final vote was cast. Not in sheets, but in quiet drizzles, enough to slick city towers in a sheen of silver, enough to mute the celebrations swelling through the Accord's planetary hubs. From a balcony overlooking New Geneva, Commander Rourke watched the lights flicker across the skyline. Every burst meant a system had joined. Every flare meant someone, somewhere, had stopped being afraid of the Council. Reese appeared behind her, holding a datapad. Final counts in. 17 systems ratified the Erebus Accord overnight. 8 were Council signatories yesterday. She nodded slowly. And the rest? 3 abstained. 2 walked out. Veilzar has called for a closed-door summit with the Elder Bloc. Emergency protocol. They'll try to reassert dominance, Rourke said. Quiet threats. Economic pressure. Sanctions. Maybe covert force. They've lost moral authority, Reese replied. And everyone knows it. Rourke turned to face him. That doesn't mean they won't try. By midday, the Accord was no longer a movement, it was a government. Not a mirror of the Council. Not a challenger mimicking its flaws. It had structure, but no hierarchy. Representation, not domination. Shared tech, shared defense, shared voice. And Earth sat at the center, not as emperor, not as ruler, as proof. Proof that change wasn't theoretical, that something new could stand even when old giants tried to crush it. Rourke entered the central chamber as silence fell. Delegates, Zentari, Hiverii, Yelthan, humans, sat in a circular formation. Equal distance, equal light. Maria handed her a projection crystal. Veilzar just transmitted a formal summons. They want you present at the Elder Summit. Rourke raised an eyebrow. And if I say no? They'll spin it as cowardice. Call you disruptive. Dangerous. She considered. Then placed the crystal in her pocket. Then we go. The summit was held in the Council's oldest chamber, deep in the orbital vault above Delvros Prime. The walls were carved with the names of every founding system. Not a single human letter among them. Until now. Rourke stepped inside flanked by Reese and Kenji. No guards. No weapons. Just 3 people walking into the lion's mouth with their heads up. Elder Severick of the Corps stood at the head of the circular dais, his eyes narrow with age and politics. You requested recognition. That is not granted lightly. I didn't request anything, Rourke said evenly. You summoned me. You style yourselves an alliance. We are one. Outside council law. We answer to the people who joined us, she said. Not the laws written without them. Veilzar spoke next, seated in shadow. You've cracked the shell. Now what, Commander? Chaos? Competing fiefdoms. Rourke stepped forward. No podium. No speech prepared. We walked into your chamber because we were done waiting to be let in. We're not here to destroy your council. We're here to stop pretending it works for everyone. You threaten war by dividing systems. We offered them choice, she replied. You're the ones who threatened war when they took it. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Then a voice, soft, brittle, spoke from the far edge of the dais. Elder Vala, the longest-serving member of the council. Once, long ago, I believed unity was maintained through silence. That the fewer voices heard, the clearer the message. But I've lived to see that silence erode truth. She looked to Rourke. Perhaps it is time the council listened again. Murmurs. Shock. Veilzar's jaw locked tight, fury held behind ceremonial calm. You've opened the door, he hissed. What comes through it you won't control. Rourke met his gaze. We never intended to. That's the difference between you and us. Hours later, back in the Accord's embassy, Rourke removed her jacket and set it gently on a chair. Rain still streaked the windows. Kenji poured 2 drinks and handed her one. I thought you'd go for the jugular. There's no need, she said. They're already bleeding credibility. Reese was studying a growing holographic map. Systems blinking green as they signed, orange as they opened dialogue, red as they resisted. We have momentum, he said. But that makes us a target. Rourke sipped once. That makes us visible. And that's all we ever needed to be. The next morning, something unexpected happened. The council broadcast a formal message, addressed to every system in neutral space. The seal of unity. The golden crest. But it wasn't a threat. Not a condemnation. It was a request. To the Accord, Veilzar's voice echoed, carefully composed, we recognize your existence as an independent alliance. While we contest your methods, we acknowledge the legitimacy of your support. Dialogue will continue. Under new terms. Shock rolled through every channel. Analysts scrambled to reframe. Critics accused weakness. Supporters claimed progress. Rourke said nothing. Just watched the screen flicker off, then turned to her team. It's not surrender, Kenji said. It's not cooperation either, Reese added. No, Rourke replied. But it's the first time they've admitted we're real. She stood, moved to the center table, and pressed her palm to the datapad. Send the response. To the Council of Systems, the message would begin, you are welcome at our table. As equals. Later, walking alone through the quiet corridor of the embassy, Rourke paused by a wall of etched names, systems who signed first, risking everything. She traced a finger along the symbol of Yelthan Prime. Then New Mars. Then Zentari. They hadn't come for conquest. They hadn't come for vengeance. They came because too many voices had gone unheard for too long. And when the council finally looked up, they didn't see invaders. They saw humans walking in like they belonged. Because they did.